Good evening, everyone. So my name is Neilson. I am the CTO of Ziosk. I joined Ziosk just about a year and a half ago. I had been at SiriusXM for a number of years and doing really IoT with SiriusXM. If you consider a car to be kind of an IoT device, and that there's basically a mobile phone embedded now into every single car system, and you've got all of the embedded systems, software, hardware, all of the challenges of deploying and updating software across cellular links, all across the country. That's what SiriusXM does in many cases, and that's a lot of what Ziosk does now with our devices. Yes, you're talking about the ecosystem is exactly what I'm here to talk about. That really does touch. We touch every part of the technology spectrum. We touch embedded, we touch hardware. We have cloud platform needs, application software running on Windows PCs, just a little bit of everything for the whole solution to work. So I'm going to start off a little bit on just kind of an overview of what Ziosk does in our vision before I dive into kind of the cool IoT stuff. And if you guys have questions or anything like that, just jump in and ask me, and I'll answer away. So this is the Ziosk vision. Which is to really provide the guests an enhanced dining experience on their own terms, how they want to dine. Do they want to order with the server, or do they just want to order from the tabletop and get their order as fast as they can? Do they want to pay at the table and just leave, or do they want to interact with the server? Our technology is designed to give the restaurant and the guests the flexibility to basically dine on their own terms. And so from a technology perspective, that translates into really 5 key things that we do for the restaurants. Our first reason for being was taking payments at the table. That's probably the #1 thing that all the guests really love. Is nobody wants to flag down their server. Everybody's been there, right? It's so much nicer to just be able to go, okay, I'm done at the table, card, and you go. And so in a sense, that was probably what brought Ziosk into being at the beginning. The other thing we also do is we do ordering. You can do ordering from the devices. I can do drink reorders and things like that here, or you can do server tablet ordering and do things like this up here, kind of like a Toast device, but a little bit larger and a little bit more different. But you can order. From a server perspective, you can order anything on the menu in that way there. And then we do some other things like you can play games. Being able to play games at the table has become a new source of revenue for our customers, right? So now, customer for a couple of dollars, they can play games at the Olive Garden, they can play games at the Yard House and things like that. And that's been really compelling opportunity for a lot of our customers because it's just opened up a whole new set of revenue for them. We also do customer surveys. So at the time you're paying out at the table, you can get a survey from that customer, and they can tell you what their experience was at the moment that they're checking out. And that's been very valuable to our customers as well. And then also loyalty. A lot of restaurants have loyalty programs. You get a redemption if you eat there 10 times or spend a certain amount of money, something like that. The devices here allow you to basically very easily enroll in loyalty directly from the device, so you don't have to scan a QR code and scroll on things like that. So that's just a little bit about what the devices do. I'm going to talk now a little bit just about the whole ecosystem. So if you go into, like, say, a Yard House, and then go to the one in Addison, you're going to see our devices sitting on the table. We have three devices, 3 types right now. This is the older device. This is the landscape version. It's got, these are all running basically an Android operating system, very, very customized and stripped down to just the essentials. So it really is a very dedicated, minimal device. And then we've got the kind of a newer model, which is like a portrait mode device. And then we have the tablet mode, which is one of our newer devices, which you can carry around and use the table as well. But that's just like the very, very tip of the iceberg. Behind all of that, you've got a back of house server that's running in the restaurant. And then you've got a point of sale system that's running in the restaurant in their back of house. You have a payment processor that all credit card transactions get processed through the cloud. And then you have the whole Ziosk cloud platform where things, where all really a lot of the magic happens there. So from an ecosystem perspective, right, you've got our devices, you've got this back of house PC. We actually have an agent that runs on that system that interacts with the restaurant point of sale system. And then our agent also communicates with the payment processor and also to our cloud platform there. So we really have basically three components for the total solution, with the devices just being kind of what everybody sees there. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So why is it not available on iOS? Any particular reason, or?
So these are dedicated custom designed devices, and I'll tell you in just a little bit why you can't just like take a tablet and go take it into a restaurant and do ordering, because really tablets just aren't cut out for the restaurant environment. We're getting some questions.
And the second question I have is, I like the title, but is your backend integrated in the ERP of, let's say take a restaurant like chili store.
Yeah.
It's a chain, it's part of a larger organization where there's a backend ERP, there's CRMs, and all those things. Does your system integrate seamlessly
into our ERP system? Yes. But we don't interface directly into like a customer's ERP system. We can provide them feeds of metrics and data and things like that. But we wouldn't typically integrate the ERP because for example, if they want to order something, they're going to place an order with us. That'll go into our ERP and we'll handle that order. But we wouldn't necessarily integrate their ERP system. But,
yeah. Okay. No, so where I was coming from is from the supply chain perspective. You're a restaurant and people are ordering stuff from you. Your inventory is getting diminished, right?
Yes.
So can you send this? So somebody is ordering centrally, right? Which means that they've got special arrangements whether they supply, like Cisco or somebody else.
Right.
Okay. The question is that will the Ziosk ecosystem, from that point of sale at the customer's table, go all the way back? I understand it's going to be your ERP, but will that get back-end integrated into the client's SAP or Oracle or Microsoft system or whatever they have, so that then there could be a trigger based on what the inventory level has reached to reorder maybe?
Oh, are you talking about ordering like food?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So the short answer is we interface with the POS. So if they run out of something at the restaurant, that is communicated to us, and we do 80/60 items would show up on the menu. Now, when it comes to the more long lead things like inventory ordering for the week or the month or whatever, thing like that, the restaurant owners, they know how much food they've sold, not necessarily through our systems, but that we can give them that information, but from their own systems there.
Right.
So they're managing their inventory. But there is this potential, I'll say at this point, for us to do some really clever things with all of the analytics we take from our devices, like as we can see every table turn, everything ordered, everything. We can fairly successfully predict now, like what the customers are likely to eat for the next few months. And that does allow us to provide the restaurant some analytics, like how much protein you need for the next few weeks. A little early stages though in that kind of analytics and stuff like that. Doesn't tie into the customer's back-end systems, although it could in the future, but not to that level currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's a payment process.
Yes.
So they have to use yours, or can it tie into third party if they're
we're a little different than others. So we don't have our own payment processor. We integrate into basically the restaurants. So if they're a Fiserv company, we're certified with Fiserv, and we connect it to Fiserv, Chase, WorldPay, things like that. That was sort of our thing. We don't necessarily make our money off payment processors and things like that. We make our money off of the service, the whole solution. And so we find the customers that we currently support with our points of sale systems. We use Aloha, Micro, Symphony, bunch of the big ones. Same thing with payment processors. And then we have like little, almost like Lego block pieces we put together for the individual restaurant. Good question, so.
So unlike Toast,
We are not a Toast. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And that's actually, I mean, if you look at Toast is really more targeted to small and medium businesses right now. They haven't had as much success in the enterprise level because most of the enterprise customers have their favorite point of sale system and their favorite food processor, and they're not likely to change.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Not so familiar with the restaurant industry, IT systems, but what I don't see is where the order gets routed to the kitchen to prepare the food.
Oh, yeah. So
Is that part of their,
it's
system
on
that you tie into, or?
it's actually very localized.
Okay.
So this little PC here is owned by the restaurant. It's basically a Windows server. And on that server, you have got a local copy of the point of sale system. And you have our agent, which is talking to that point of sale system directly, and our agent communicates with the payment processor in this case.
Right.
And it's interesting thing about these point of sale systems. We're talking in many cases 90s level technology. You guys remember COM interfaces, stuff like that? A lot of the POSs still use COM to interface, so it's very old school. Restaurants are kind of a low tech environment right now. They're moving into the 21st century, but they're not all there yet. And so we basically communicate directly to the point of sale system, and we can query it. You know, we can look at menus, we can place orders. The point of sale system communicates to the restaurant kitchen. And that's where the order goes. And the restaurant kitchens, they use a lot of the restaurants. It depends on the kitchen, actually. The kitchen can be very old school. It used to be a little ticket that prints out of a printer. Yeah. Some of the newer ones use something called KDS, Kitchen Display System, which does a really cool job of like staging the orders and advertising that automatically into a big display system. But that all comes through the point of sale, which we interface.
So would you compete with, let's say, an Oracle microsystem?
No, that would be a partner. So we integrates into the Oracle Micros point of sale system. Okay. That's just one of the point of sale systems we use. Yeah. Yes.
Do you provide any analytics for like scheduling workload, as in like the number of servers the rest of the
We do, yeah, definitely. We do a pretty good job. We can tell you, we can tell you exactly how many tables you turned, and then from there, if you assume 5 tables a station, something like that, we can tell you how many servers that you need there. Yes.
One question, Eric. So over time when the restaurant industry was pretty much shut down, how did you end up addressing those challenges?
I was just talking to someone about that earlier. But that was actually a really interesting time for Ziosk because I think so. I wasn't there at the time, but I talking to my colleagues, it turned out that Ziosk devices ended up being very helpful in keeping the restaurants open because they were able to do more with less staff. They were able to, you could pay at the table, so you didn't necessarily need to have a server there all the time. And it ended up for a lot of our restaurants, we actually added customers during the pandemic because it kind of pushed a lot of the restaurants over into the higher technology. Whereas, many restaurants are still had and paid, things like that, but it sort of forced them to innovate. And we were, in a sense, it was probably more of a boost to Ziosk than a detriment.
Nice.
Okay. So a little bit more about the devices and kind of like what makes them tick on the inside. So these devices were custom designed by Ziosk. I think I mentioned earlier they run a very stripped down version of Android. They do a lot of.
Oh yeah. You said the device was custom designed.
Yeah.
You actually designed hardware?
We do hardware. Yeah. Excuse me. So this one was completely designed in-house locally by Ziosk. These two, we worked with an ODM to do a design, but we designed it. Yeah, this is and I'll tell you why. Because there are a lot of challenges in the restaurant environment that a typical Android device or an iOS device just can't handle. So you've got. Let me see if I've got a couple of. I'm gonna get to an example because I got a lot of great examples of how this is. I'll tell you why. We didn't want to.
I want you just to be interactive.
Oh, this is good. Yeah. We didn't. We would love to go to a more software-based solution, but they're just now starting to see third-party kind of off-the-shelf devices come on the market that can do it. But there are so many things. You got to be payment certified, very secure hardware standards that most devices don't meet. Battery life is essential, ruggedability, there's just all of these factors that your iPad just can't handle. But I'll give you some more. Again, I have some pictorial examples of that here coming up. So a little bit on the just basic functionality, right? So I think I talked earlier, they can do payments, order things. They do lots of great analytics, right? Any touch anywhere on this device is basically, we can track that and touch it. So we can see, who's who's playing what games, who likes certain kinds of food orders, things like that. Lots of really interesting analytics, all anonymized, just to see what people are what they like to do, what they like to interact with. And we can provide those trends back to our customers to give them additional insights, just basically to help them grow their business. So the purpose of my talk was to talk about the challenges of the restaurant. So this is a really interesting environment for electronic devices, right? There is chaos going on in the restaurant. You've got, food everywhere. You've got, hot kitchens. You've got customers. You've got kids. You just don't know what's going to happen in the environment. So there are some really unique things that come about. The first one that is definitely a challenge is food and liquids. People pour stuff on your device. I've seen devices are made that have like pasta stuck in the credit card slot. I mean, it is just, you'd just be surprised. And these devices have to be very ruggedized against any sort of liquid, mainly liquid, but food as well. In fact, this is our first device here. And this has this little credit card slot over here, right, for inserting credit card. We really realized that in hindsight, this was just kind of a food trap. So the new device, we went with much more streamlined. So the swipe is here, the tap is here. It's designed to basically be a lot more shielded against food and drink and things like that. But that's one of those things. It's one of those things we do our own hardware is because a lot of hardware just isn't ruggedized against all of the food and beverage and everything. These are IP60 or IP65 rated and stuff like that. In fact, I have some pictures. So yeah, these are some RMA devices we got not too long ago, but there was just, all sorts of food and liquid part here. This is the mag stripe area. Somehow cola got put on one of the mag stripe reader, right? Kind of messed that up and everything. People drop them all the time. You'd be surprised at just how easy it is. You're eating at a table and you move your hand, the device falls off the table and things like that. Yeah, ruggedability against the food and drink is probably one of our biggest challenges, just being able to survive that.
Well, can you walk it off with the customers?
Well, there's really nothing you can do with them. I mean, they're locked down. We only run certified software. There are multiple points of tamper on the devices. So if you so much as basically if you break the glass or if you try to open the device, the tamper detection will go off and it'll basically wipe the device will be unusable. It won't run. Yeah.
The data connection between the device and your server, so Wi-Fi.
It's Wi-Fi.
Is it a dedicated Wi-Fi that you set up?
Well, when Ziosk first deployed, we used to supply the network equipment to the customer. And that was because at the time, most restaurants didn't have any Wi-Fi or any wireless environment. We've kind of gotten out of that business now. We maintain a lot of the current wireless networks for some of our customers, but most of our new customers now have their own Wi-Fi. And so it's more along the lines of just assessing the Wi-Fi footprint, making sure that it's got access points, everything that we need. All that.
Are these battery-only devices, or sometimes also
they can run off power, but for the most part, they're sitting on the table. They have to be battery powered, and they've got to last about 20 hours on a battery life. In fact, these are 21 amp hour batteries. Your iPad is about 8 amp hours, and you can't. Another interesting thing too is these screens can never go to sleep like your typical iPad or your phone, right? To save battery power, you got to always have them on, always displaying signage and things like that, and that really significantly draws battery life. You just can't go to sleep. Sleep safe out of classes.
And these are made by you?
Yeah, yeah. It's one of my favorite jobs. Is actually have real hardware that I control. Yeah.
You do the credit card RFID.
Yeah, we do. We do tap. So yeah. So I have an example, but let's see if I can. I'll bring up a pay thing here. I'll get out of the game.
Harder to stick a piece of spaghetti.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do, but you know what? We have to support everything. Let me.
How long do you think you'll have to support?
Well, swipe is definitely going away. So I imagine swipe will be the next thing to go. But yeah, chip for sure. Insert, yeah, chip and dip will be around for a while. I'll show you after this. I'll show you how the payment thing works. But basically, you can, in this case, you can swipe here, You can tap here. We have a chip. There's dip as well, and dip is over here. And if you have Google or Apple Pay, you can use that.
What's dip?
Oh, dip is just basically inserting your card.
Oh, it reads the chip.
It reads the chip content. Yeah, yeah. So I'm sorry. Yeah. So we call it. What do we call it? Chip, dip, and swipe. I think is the general way. Yeah. Yeah. 720p. Decent enough, you know. Works well. Works well.
Can this be done on the Raspberry Pi devices, or it has to be?
Well, so you wouldn't have the payment. So all of these devices have to be payment transaction certified. So you can't take any payments on a Raspberry Pi device or anything like that, because everything is end-to-end encrypted from the moment you enter the card data. And there's other security requirements as well. So for example, we have a dedicated secure processor on the device that we can't even access. It can only be accessed through APIs. And you know, Raspberry Pi just doesn't have that level of security.
So how many high-end clients do you have? What are the restaurants like?
Well, we are in a lot of the Darden brand restaurants. So Yard House, Olive Garden, Applebee's, let's see, where else? Cheddar's, Texas Roadhouse.
The number of waiters on staff versus using this?
It's allowed them to run with a little bit lower staff because more waiters can service more stations. But the really cool thing for the waiters they get better tips. And the customers well, I'll tell you a couple of reasons. So the guest satisfaction is higher, which we know because we can track that with guest satisfaction surveys. But also the way that we do tip is probably a lot of how you see it now, right? Well, we'll pop up a screen and you've got those 4 buttons, you know, you want to do 15, 18, 22, 20. A lot of people just hit 20 or 22, just kind of like, that's just without having to do the math. And when you're not having to actually sit down and add things up and go, wow, that's a $20 tip. You know, people are just likely to leave a better tip. And so servers love it. I mean, and then they can handle more tables, so they get higher tips across the board, not just in percentage, but in volume. And they can turn tables faster, which is also more revenue for both the restaurant and servers.
So I often wonder how much their tips increased when they go to a system that asks for the tip.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and again, we're not like in places like Quick Serve where the tip is sort of optional. Right, we're in restaurants. Always tip. It goes up. I mean, it's trying to recall. It's a good 4 or 5% bump. It's in the 20s for sure. You know, so it's definitely worth. That's a big incentive.
COVID has shown that interaction is much more valuable than non-interaction, such as this.
Yeah,
so
and
have you seen any decline in utilization of this?
So we can tailor the device experience to what the restaurant wants. Some restaurants want a more interactive engagement with their servers. So for those restaurants, they will typically go with something, we call it drop and pay. So for example, let's say you're going to like a Capital Grill, which we're not in yet, but they're part of the Darden brand. So I fully hope we'll be there soon. But Capital Grill, you're probably not going to have one of these devices on the table because it would sort of take away from the server engagement. But when you're ready to pay, what the server is going to do is they're going to go, oh, you're ready to pay? Here's your bill. They're going to, instead of, if you've been to a lot of places now, either they bring you that piece of plastic and you sign and do the tip that way, or some of the newer places like with Toast, they'll bring you the toast and you kind of give them a card and they insert it and then they say, okay, now you can leave your tip, and they kind of turn away and everything. Ours work a little bit differently in that the server basically pulls up the check, they put it in pay mode, and they just leave it on the table, and then it's locked. You can't get out of that check without the server code. And then a person can just pay. They can do a survey, they can do loyalty, they can do whatever they want, and then they go. And the server just grabs another tablet and it just keeps going. So for the higher end restaurants, you probably get that experience. For other restaurants like an Olive Garden, they're fine having them on the table. There's still server interaction and stuff like that, but it's a little bit more collegial because the server takes your big order. But we have what we call bookend ordering for some of those restaurants. So you don't have full menu order. You would just have things like appetizers or drink reorders, that kind of really fast turnaround stuff that you don't necessarily need to flag down. It really varies across the spectrum.
How many devices are connected at that time? Because the bandwidth is important.
Oh man, okay, okay. I'm going to jump to the next slide here because that's a very good question. So the answer is a whole lot. So like 50 devices would be typical in a single restaurant. And if you imagine restaurants, think about a restaurant in Kansas somewhere, right? You've got maybe a 5 megabit DSL line or something like that. And you have 50 devices all power, and of course they always power off at night because they basically pull the battery out of the device. We have a big battery charging rack, you know. They pull the batteries in the rack, leave the devices on the table, they charge the batteries up, and then the next morning they put them in the device fresh. Devices power up, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to call home and they're going to check for an update. You know, have a new menu or something like that, right? And you can imagine 50 devices all powering up at one time. It's like if you were to use a standard, just have all go out to the internet and check, we totally bring down that customer's network. So we have to be really careful, and we have a whole really dedicated method of getting content from our platform to the device. And basically, you have 1 or 2 devices will be the first ones to go out and connect to our platform, and we'll say, okay, you've got some updates coming, but we won't allow any other devices to communicate with the platform or actually download content. And those 1 or 2 devices will download the new content, and they'll basically use a peer-to-peer networking system to distribute the content amongst all the devices in the restaurant. So you only really have to download the content roughly a little over one and a half times or so. We're actually making that better with the help of one of your colleagues here, Andy. Oh, yeah, you and Andy Sloat. We're working with them to make it more efficient and faster. But yeah, that's content download is a big deal.
Yeah, so with Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, right?
Yeah.
These guys are your competitors. Eventually, they will have.
Oh no, they're partners. No, we work with them just fine. All of them
as competitors.
Not really. No, I mean
They won't touch POS.
Yeah, they don't, and we don't really care what POS you use as long as we can integrate into it. That gives us a lot of flexibility across the.
You don't care about POS.
Well, I say that I only care if I have to develop and integrate into a new one. I just want to make sure it's it's worth doing. But we have a pipeline of point of sale systems that we're currently integrating into now. So we always have one in the queue. Kind of the same thing for payment processors too. Somebody always has a different payment processor that's not on our supported list. So kick off the project and off we go there.
So
yeah,
cloud that you're showing, is that a public cloud like AWS?
It's Azure. We're on Azure right now. Yeah. We have some AWS components as well, but mostly.
So anywhere everybody hits that particular Azure region, or you're all distributed?
We're distributed. Yeah. So we're very redundant, and it's interesting that the traffic, we're kind of weird too. Like we don't have like a steady stream of device traffic that you might see kind of throughout the day. We get really high spikes at lunch and dinner, when people start paying and eating and things. And then at end of day, but everybody does end of day processing, there's a massive spike. There's lots of queries to the payment processor to process the transactions. So our cloud setup is we have to be able to handle really huge spikes in load and then have to go back down to really, really low. So we have to have a lot of auto scaling to support things like that. You had a question?
Yep. I came in late, so I'm sorry if you've already addressed this earlier. But what is the true value add of your devices, given that you have a phone app that does all that, and you also have these other point of sale apps like the payment transaction capabilities on people's phones. So what is the true value add that your devices bring?
So we actually are supporting mobile apps as well. We kind of can see the mobile phone as kind of a partner solution for some restaurants. But we in our analysis of we've talked to the restaurants. A lot of the way that you would pay with a mobile phone, first off, to pay with the mobile phone, I think a lot of restaurants use scanning the QR code and things like that. People hate QR codes. That nobody likes that terrible PDF menu you get on your QR code. And paying with QR code can be a pain. I mean, if you have the restaurant's app and you've entered your credit card details, it's a little bit more convenient. But not everybody has the app for every single restaurant they visit. So that's a little bit of pain. And really important to our big customers is if you're paying on your phone and using a credit card, you're going to get hit with a card not present fee, which increases the transaction cost.
Card not what?
Card not present fee. So your phone is my typical phone is not a payment certified device unless I actually use Apple or Google Pay. And to use that, I have to have some device to tap it against, right? So if I just go to a web browser or use a mobile app and I try to pay, my credit card details here on the phone and pay, the transaction cost of the payment processor is higher than if I pay on a certified device, because it's additional security risk, right? That you're having to pay for card not present.
Significant percentage.
It's significant. Yeah, I don't recall what the exact number is, but it adds up. Yeah, especially if you're talking about high volume, restaurants.
You said a number.
It could be like 3%.
3% of the payment or 3% more?
3% transaction payment.
So the transaction fee goes up by 3%?
And it uses a transaction fee, and then there's a percentage fee.
This is higher risk.
Yeah, higher risk.
If there's a broken service.
That's all absorbed by the restaurant.
Yeah, restaurant absorbs those costs. Customers don't really see it.
Yeah. So there's
So who
transaction.
owns all the data? Like, you own it?
It really depends on the relationship with the customer. In some cases, we have a partnership with customers on the data. Some cases, maybe the restaurant wants to own that data themselves. There's some that we own. It's kind of worked out on a customer by customer basis.
And so the reason I asked the question is allergies, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
For individuals that come in, and sometimes waiters don't ask, or even the device doesn't ask, right? So who is controlling this data so that if a customer forgets, like who is responsible?
Well, right now, we can't really see who you are when you come down to the Ziosk device, right? And unless you log in with like a loyalty program or something like that, if you sit down and this is one of these devices that's at the table, you can order and do whatever you want. And even if you use your credit card, we don't really know who you are. I mean, we have a tokenized, hash of the credit card number, but we're not tying that to any personal information. Now, at some point, we would like to be able to recognize a customer as they sit down at the table. Maybe if they have a mobile app that's communicating with the device, let's say via Bluetooth or Bluetooth Low Energy, it would be great to be able to serve up kind of a customized and a recommended menu based on their eating habits, which they would basically enter in with that app, and then we could do that.
That would be a high add to the restaurants.
Oh yeah. It's something we're talking about now.
Can you filter the menu when you browse by allergy?
Yeah, so these things are like really customizable. So everything you see here, we call it content. It's a little different for every customer. It's kind of a templatized display, but if the customer wants a menu that only shows the gluten-free stuff, we could build them a menu that shows just.
Because they would call that issue. You're browsing the menu, right?
Yeah.
I'm allergic to peanuts, and then it filters out everything.
Yeah.
99%.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's just driven by customer preference.
Yeah, it's actually based on who owns the data on that particular client or the customer. Right? If it's you processing that payment, you could have that information, or if it's the restaurant, then it's just a small setting. Versus you guys, it doesn't matter where the client is, because you have the data, you can sort of customize it where they're sitting.
Yeah, I agree. And it's against partnership. We have various different types of partnerships with restaurants, but we're very co-linked when it comes to generating customer preferred kind of content that way. We work with our partners. Yeah.
This slide got me thinking. So how much of the system works when the internet connection doesn't?
That's a good question. I think
That's a good question.
There we go. Loss of internet. Yes. So restaurants lose internet a lot. And so when that happens, you lose contact with the payment processor, you lose contact with our cloud platform. All of the devices here are designed to run without internet. As long as they have Wi-Fi and as long as they can connect to that backup house PC, we can basically take orders and we can take payments too. We have, it's called offline spooling. I think a lot of people may have heard that called, but effectively we kind of do a mock authorization of that transaction. Yeah. And then as soon as we get connection again, we can go out and authorize it. A little bit higher risk for the restaurant customers just because they're taking payments without actually verifying that there are funds on a card. But the trade-off is they can take the payments, and it always usually works out for the better of the restaurants to take payments. Yeah.
Are you looking at incorporating any kind of biometrics so it'd be easier to recognize a customer?
Yeah, we've talked about that. It's a dedicated hardware kind of thing, and a lot of customers are a little bit squeamish on biometric data right now, like facial recognition and things like that. We have a camera in the devices now that we use for scanning gift cards and stuff like that. But we really, so far, there hasn't been a lot of demand for going full biometrics for the customer. Oh, it's something that we could do.
That was one of my questions as well, was with biometrics, because the convenience factor goes up in terms of the loyalty program. I've definitely used these devices before. They're great to play games on the kids and stuff, but I don't want to input my email and create an account. However, there's probably much more benefits to me as a consumer if I am a loyal customer sometimes.
We try to tailor to basically our goal is what makes the customer happy, right? If the customer wants to enter an email and do loyalty and want to bring more customers, we will support that.
Are your customers happy now with the amount of loyalty engagement they're getting?
There's never enough loyalty for our customers. They want one of the things actually that's really great that the Ziosk devices do drive loyalty enrollment, because we can present, if you're not enrolled in loyalty, there's a payment process pipeline when you start to pay. And one of the things that it'll ask you to do is, do you want to enroll in loyalty, or do you want to just enter your loyalty number and link it? So it drives loyalty conversion, which is a great thing for the restaurant customers. And it allows, the kind of the freedom. They want to be completely anonymous. They want to get into loyalty.
A lot of it too depended on the customer's incentive programs they offer to interact with the device.
Yeah.
You guys have to provide guidance on what works or what doesn't work in terms of incentives they should be.
Yeah, we have kind of a standard set of sort of playbook guide on kind of best practices.
Sure.
And then we have analytics so they can actually see what's working and what's not. And we can tweak the displays. We can tweak things like game pricing. Some game pricing works better for different markets and different restaurants. We can even tweak, where the pricing is shown on the game menu, because sometimes that actually affects updates. Okay.
So are these devices loaned or leased or subscription? How are you placing these devices?
Well, most of the time we're leasing the devices to the customers, but the customers can buy if they really want to. Most customers just do it monthly service. It's like a SaaS offer.
And that includes breakage and all of this.
Yeah. And luckily our RMA has been pretty low. I have a great graphic here. So this is a Texas Roadhouse restaurant, and they're a challenging restaurant because cement floors and really high tables. Like there's a little step here before you get to the table, and this happens a lot. I mean, but on the whole, I'm really proud. These things really hold up. We do all the drop tests and stuff, in the labs. We get a couple that come back where they've just been, and we have accelerometers and stuff, so we can actually tell how many times it's been dropped. We can tell you kind of how high or what the impact was. I swear somebody's must be thrown against walls or something, because there's some really high impact ratings we've gotten on some of these boxes. But they're again, it's one of the reasons we had to design the hardware ourselves, is that your off-the-shelf hardware just couldn't handle the restaurant load there.
How long did it take you to design it?
Man, so I wasn't at Ziosk when they did this. I know they did the last one less than a year. It's pretty fast. I think it took them a couple of years for the first one. And they actually had some older models too.
Can you talk about the dollar amount for the device?
I probably couldn't tell you exactly what that was. But we build them more efficiently every year.
So it's an Android based, or?
It is Android based, yeah. A heavily customized operating system. And it basically only runs, it's a digital certificate. We've stripped out pretty much everything that's not essential for just basically displaying.
Android's very tricky to do a lockdown secure device.
It is. And we take a lot of pride in the security of these systems, because it's not just, in fact, I think I have a slide on that too. Security is one of those things, right? I mean, we are a payment device, right? You can take credit card payments directly on the device, and we're sitting out in a public venue out here on tables where anybody can do anything. They can take the device, they can track it, they can do whatever they want. So we really have to be highly secure. It's a challenge. Something that's probably our number one. Whenever we do anything, our first thought is, how secure is this? We got to make sure it is secure. I appreciate the questions. Oh, okay. So let's see. I talked about Talked about ruggedness, bandwidth, talked about battery life. Before I go into some additional IoT stuff, does anybody have any more questions? Oh, you first.
I noticed that all the restaurant names that you took are really part of large chains. Okay?
Yeah.
Is your solution more amenable to them versus a boutique, specialized one restaurant?
Right now it is. It's just the biggest bang for the buck. But and it's also because right now we kind of white glove the content for the customers, but we're moving into more of a self-service model here in the near future, which will allow people to create their own menus and their own experiences, kind of like a templated format. And when we do that, then that will open the door for the small and medium businesses to move into it. But to do that, the only way to do that effectively is to have people create their own. Actually, our larger customers want to create their own menus too. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so when you connect to the cloud, is it through the IoT hub or something else?
We use IoT hub for some parts of the system, but the devices, it would be too expensive to have so many devices using IoT hub. In my experience with Azure IoT hub, it's kind of expensive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we just connect through other HTTP. Yeah.
Now, does the device, you have a cost model for the device? What about the analytics that you provide?
Yeah.
And I can go buy the device and have it sit on the table, and there it is. But if I want to actually use it in my business to make business decisions, then I would have to have some sort of analysis of the customer buying habits and stuff like that.
Yeah, we provide.
Is there another charge for that, or does that come with?
It's an additional service offering. We can provide different tiers of data products.
Okay, so then if you look at renting with the service model or purchase with service.
Yeah, it's almost everybody rents with like a reporting package model. That's generally the typical for a customer. Some customers want a little bit more data. Some want just the basic. We have like 3 different tiers of analytics that we offer.
Okay, so if I'm renting, do you roll out regular upgrades for me, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we try to do upgrades. We try to keep everybody up to the date because we're always doing security patches or everything. And of course, customers are changing their menus, happy hours and seasonal menus and stuff like that. So we will align on a certain number of updates for content every year as well for customer.
So if I have a bigger chain of restaurant, I'm adapting your system. So what is the system? What are all the solutions that you've done? So they're starting from the scratch. And what are the solutions
that we're offering? Well, I mean, that's a bit, boy, kind of getting to know what the customer wants it's a big. That's what our sales engineers really are good at doing, and they will first kind of assess what the customer's kind of needs are. Right? Are they looking for a tabletop? Do they want server full order entry? Do they want something in between? And then they look at the restaurant ecosystem. So what point of sale system they're using, what payment processor they're using, and then we kind of build a solution around those factors, and then go from there.
So it's not that you provide them the POS system.
No, we don't. No, we use whatever POS system they have, assuming that we support that POS system. We support most of the big ones.
There's literally thousands.
There are a lot. Yeah.
Tabletop devices. How many big competitors do you have?
Well, there was one, but they kind of left the market recently. Presto.
Yeah.
If you go to the Presto website, you will no longer see anything about their tabletop offerings. So I don't want to speak for Presto, but they seem to be getting much more interested in the drive-through and QSR market.
So the other devices are mostly into payment processing. Is there form of income like Clover and Toast?
Yeah, exactly. Clover and Toast, really, they make a lot of money.
Take a slice of your credit card. Yeah. Piece.
What was the other one? Platinum Toast?
Toast and Clover is huge as well. You've probably seen the little white Clover boxes at the donut shop. Use them a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're primarily a payment processor, so they make money on every spot.
Well, oh, yes.
Do you, for like handout orders, does that go, it doesn't go through the system?
Yeah, it does. So we actually will, we'll have what are like usually our tablet devices. We'll configure that for like a to-go mode. And so, so you look at a restaurant, there's sort of like a couple of different zones. So there'll be, for example, a dining zone, which would be like your typical dining. You have a bar zone, and the experience might be a little different in a bar zone than a tabletop zone. Maybe a full drink menu, something like that. There's a to-go zone where maybe you're not necessarily taking the orders on the devices, but you're probably using quick check lookup and payment. And so the devices will work in that zone in that way. So those are the kind of the ways. That's patio zone sometimes that we work too. But the way that things are sort of set up in the platform is for every restaurant site, you set up various zones in that restaurant, and then the content is for each device is tailored to that zone.
Is there a plan or service in place already to piggyback on Uber Eats and DoorDash services? Because what I see the most, the delivery driver comes into a restaurant and goes straight to the hostess or the cashier, interacts with a person who goes to the back to check on an order when they could. We
have plans, but nothing announced yet. We really want to be part of the whole dining experience. Right now, we're in the restaurant, but we'd love to be part of the whole journey.
Yeah. The analytics piece.
Yeah.
You said you're selling that back to the restaurants as a package. And you sell that outside or utilize that data outside? I was thinking.
I would say we would not do it unless we had the customer's permission to do that via the device. They'd have to opt in, and it would have to be a partnership with that restaurant customer as well.
I was going to say, you could really.
We're very cautious on how we handle the data.
Go to the NRF, and they actually anonymize that data from US providers, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say right now we really don't sell that data outside. We just it's mostly, you know, we treat that a lot as our customers' data or the user's data. Anybody else have a question?
Quick question. In many restaurants like Panera Bread and others, you have this big.
Oh yeah, the ordering kiosks.
You can place your order and really not interact with the waiter or the waitress. Are you part of that, or is that something?
Right now, we're not. I mean, we could do that certainly if we wanted to, but that's just not been one of our biggest markets right now. Right now, we've got all we can handle with just full service restaurants.
What are your channels of market?
Can you give me an example of what you're talking about? Can you talk about
how do you reach the restaurant owner?
Oh gosh, that's
direct with partner.
I would tell you that's really probably a good set. I mean, I'm the geeky engineer. How our salespeople work, a lot of it's word of mouth and referenceability. Somebody's, the CEO of one restaurant talks to another one, and they say, "God, you got to out these right?" And I don't pretend to know how our sales folks really find and bring in the customers, conferences, and who knows what. So I'll defer that to.
But is it direct sales, or do you have?
Oh, it's direct.
Work with third party.
No, it's direct. We have programs.
You can't buy Ziosk devices anywhere else.
No, right. Not with Ziosk. Any more questions? I'm gonna talk about something a little different from those devices, a little more hardcore IoT. That's something coming down the pipe. So there's one more set of things that we're really just now working on. And we call it DigiSite 360. And one of the challenges with these devices, or from our customer's perspective, is if I have this device here, let's say this is like table 1. I have to type in, I have to basically hard code this for table 1. And because there's no way for it to know it's on table 2 or table 3 or 5. And it's kind of a problem where if somebody, say you're in an Olive Garden, somebody grabs this device and puts it on a different table, maybe to play the games or something. Well, now all of a sudden, this device is on table 1, it's on table 3, and they try to pay, the check is on the wrong table. And so there's enough instances where you have problems with basically checks being assigned to the wrong table, things like that. It's just a little bit of a hassle. So we've been experimenting with technology using Bluetooth Low Energy beacons. And we don't turn up the power, we turn it down to really, really low power. And we put them under the tables. And that allows these devices all have Bluetooth built in anyway. They sit on the table, they basically read the nearest beacon, and they can automatically tell what table they're at. And it's really nice. They're very, and these beacons are a couple of bucks each. The battery life is 10 years, you know, and you can outfit a restaurant fairly quickly. And then now you've got a device that can tell what table it's on. And it even goes beyond that too. I mean, so we can tell what table we're at, but we can also tell like what zone we're in. So you got a device here on the tabletop and it's showing a tabletop experience. You take this device and put it over the bar, and then the bar has another set of beacons, and now that device can display a completely different experience. And it's all in these little beacons. You know, they're sitting there. They're basically communicating with our devices. Our devices are acting as relay points, and they're uploading all that beacon data into the cloud, and we can analyze really interesting technology, and we can use other Bluetooth devices in the restaurant. So if you're walking around with your phone, we can collect that phone Bluetooth beacon data. We can get interesting traffic patterns.
So, but it's a narrow footprint.
And for our beacon technology, yeah, it's very narrow. Yeah.
Because it's like the parking.
Yes. Yeah.
Space.
It's almost like an NFC kind of thing, but NFC doesn't go through tables and stuff as well as the BLE does. So that's kind of that's sort of an up and coming feature. You'll start to see in the near future.
Will it allow you to take your bar tab to your table then?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can do that now. They can transfer the tab to a table number. The bartender can do that, and it'll just show up in your device. But yeah, even better. I mean, if your phone was say linked to you're close to a proximity of the bar, you know, and you're kind of linked to that bar, and you had an app on the phone and you moved down to the table, you know, in theory it would follow you. We are really looking at things like guest arrival. So when a guest walks into a restaurant, you know, we got a beacon close by, and the guest had that mobile app open, so we know what their Bluetooth MAC address is effectively, and you know we could arrive. Not only we could notify the host that the guest has arrived, who the guest is, maybe even automatically assign them a table. Lots of really cool stuff we can do with that one. So a little early phases for that, but that's what we're looking at now for future stuff.
Is that a restaurant specific app or is that Ziosk?
Well, we have both. So we have our own app. And of course we have, it's a set of APIs that restaurant apps can plug into if they want to use as well.
So if I download the Ziosk app and is that in all the restaurants you're in?
You will be eventually. It's not out. It hasn't been published yet for everyone, but that is the plan, is to have an app that you could use at any Ziosk affiliated location. Any more questions?
Meaning I could have my Ziosk account and easily become a loyal member at each of these branches because I'm already.
That's one of those things, yeah, because you know nobody likes to download a bunch of different apps. And if we could have an app, yeah. So there's I would say there's potential in that area. It's not our core business at this point or anything like that. We love to be just on the table or in the hand of the server, but that there's really interesting data ecosystem and mobile app ecosystem that I think is very promising for expansion.
So the restaurants that you work with,
yeah,
they order a capability, order up ahead. So you know when you're in a rush sometime,
yeah,
okay, takes like 10 minutes to come up to your table.
Yeah, so order ahead is done usually via something. It can be done. It's done in the restaurant's app right now, and they interface into a company called, I think it's Omnivore or Olo they use. But they have there are companies now that provide software for doing online ordering, and then that software kind of plugs into the POS of the restaurant. But we could certainly offer that functionality. We have an online ordering a set of APIs as well. And so some of our customers, we do allow them to directly order through a mobile app or something like that. Some customers use other solutions as well. But yeah, order ahead is a big thing for restaurants. Order ahead and just pick up.
No, I'm talking about ordering and eating it in the restaurant.
Oh yeah, yeah, we could definitely do that. In fact, a couple, and I know some larger customers that are doing something like that now with their app. They're not using us; they're using a third-party tool, but they're doing it now. Yeah.
What about the kitchen aspect? Like keeping track of how many ingredients you need and ordering them at the right time and all of that.
the restaurant's POS does a lot of that now. They can tell that's kind of their central point of information. You know, we can tell what things are ordered. We don't have like the breakdown of how much chicken and what's the served portion size of the salsa and stuff like that. That's really tracked in the restaurant end. We can give them analytics that can help them predict what meals are likely to be ordered, but they would need to break that down into the components for ordering on there. They have systems that already do a lot of that now. I think I'm getting close to the end here. Any more questions?
When you onboard a new customer, like I say, there's a new restaurant chain that wants to use your service. Like, how much work is there from kind of like the time the contract is signed to the point where these lovely devices are on every table?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the customer. Once you know the setup requirements of the customer, you can onboard fairly quickly, you know, within a matter of weeks. The biggest challenge is generally you'll do the initial kind of setup and test in a customer lab and make sure you work out all the components. If the customers have a pretty standardized point of sale system, stuff like that, you can do it very quickly. And then you do the deployment. I mean, we can do hundreds of restaurants. Once we start rolling, we can bring hundreds of restaurants a week online once we crank it out. Once you get past the setup phase. Some customers, though, a little bit more custom, kind of weird configurations that can take a little bit longer, or we spend more time in their lab, kind of getting things set up and working. But once we have the playbook basically defined for that customer, it's really fast. And it's a few hours for the restaurant, each restaurant.
And those integrations, you guys do it, or is it like a third party SI that does that?
We basically do it. We work with some third-party contractors since they're all over the country. Yeah, we have a third-party company that we use to help us with the actual setup and everything. It's not just devices. So you've got battery racks that you have to do. This tablet here uses inductive charging. So we have an inductive charging rack that needs to be set up, and there's certain safety requirements that when you plug it, you don't want to daisy chain five battery racks into one plug, right? You just don't do stuff like that. So we like to have some oversight when they do initial setup, sure things just done correctly. Yes.
So no discussion can be nowadays without generative AI.
Oh yeah. Oh man, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Oh, so man, we are doing some really cool stuff. I can't talk about a lot of it. I will tell you some funny thing though. The other day I was kind of curious to see where AI was just from some of the questions, because like one of the ways we look at it is if you were, let's say, a manager of a restaurant, like what questions would you ask like an AI-enabled restaurant platform or an ecosystem? Like what kind of questions would you ask, right? And so some of the questions that I think a lot of people would ask would be something like, for example, is based on my traffic and everything, what is my likely staffing levels that I need for the rest of the week or for the rest of the month, right? And have an AI generate that staffing level for you automatically based on all the previous orders, historical data, everything. That's like really awesome. And, being able to do things like predict how much chicken or seafood that you need to order for the week. That's the kind of thing you would just ask the AI. It would sort through all of your data, bring in outside event data and give you a pretty definitive answer, assuming it's the right answer. And so I was looking at playing around with ChatGPT. That's the challenge, right? And I was like, I started asking about. I said, assume I'm a local restaurant in the Dallas area. Create an interesting menu item that would, appeal to locals in the DFW area. And I did that. Yeah.
What did you get?
I got. Okay, it was some sort of a chipotle fried chicken with, well, it said, I remember it said cornmeal syrup. I'm not exactly sure what cornmeal syrup is. I don't think you make that. It wasn't perfect for sure. There's a little room for growth, right?
Which one has the AI capability for the customer? Say like, I like like the chicken parmesan, we come back on, man, people don't want.
It is definitely, yeah, it's definitely possible to you can speak into these devices and place an order, and you can do that natural language processing, pump that into AI, and build a point of sale system. That is absolutely possible.
Like learn sell that, right?
Yeah.
Get the customer preferences. Go in. I like this. You like no this.
Oh yeah, definitely predicting what they like, and I mean you can do some really cool based on just even what they're ordering currently. You can kind of figure out what they're likely to order next, just based on what the current thing is built out. There's a ton of stuff to really look at doing. I think the challenge is putting that in a product that you can properly sell, to a restaurant owner, and you got to do it cost effectively because AI is expensive. I tell you,
I guess I'm confused by that statement because you said before it's anonymized and it doesn't know.
You would have to basically start identifying the customer. So there are plenty of ways that we could have a customer like log in, a loyalty reward if they want to. And at that point, we could pull their preferences and stuff if they want it that way. But one of the things I've seen when I was fooling around with ChatGPT, I created the account and everything, and I was generating queries. I had like this data repository of all my personal emails for the last couple of years, and I was having it sorted and everything. And I really quickly blew through like $10 in just a few hours of playing with that API. So on scale, I'm a little right now at LLM is expensive. So we have to be careful. One of my colleagues called it like a AI with like the $10 solution to a 10-cent problem or something like that. So it's something to be cognizant of. It's definitely got fantastic potential for sure, but we're not quite there yet. Any more questions? Yeah.
I'm assuming you are nationwide, right?
Yes.
So there must be a wealth of data analytics that the restaurants want us to what is popular in one area of the country.
Oh yeah.
So do you?
Oh certainly.
Provide that?
Well, yeah. We for their restaurant, we tend to focus on their data. They want their data and their analytics. They have lots of other sources outside, for third party popularity.
Global expansion.
We are hoping, yeah. I can see Canada coming very soon because some of our customers already have restaurants in Canada. Some of them have them overseas in Europe as well. So it's
like if you have an Olive Garden, like anywhere they are in the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's really a certification effort. It's getting all of the additional certifications we need for those restaurants. Any more questions?
Any more questions?
No, very interactive.